Hello and welcome to today's training. So thankful you decided to join us today. My name is Greg Tomczyk, CEO here at Valor Cybersecurity, and we're in for a really important topic today. I believe this is the most important effort when it comes to cybersecurity in the U.S. government's history, something called CMMC, which we'll get to here shortly. But at Valor Cybersecurity, we're all about helping companies set cybersecurity standards that both help protect their company as well as align with business requirements and not the other way around. It's extremely important to protect your business proactively. A lot of people talk about it. There's a lot of people out there selling to do it, but I really believe it's in your best interest to take action to protect your company. And there are really affordable and effective ways to do that. And each and every day we get to help companies in the defense community do that both proactively as well as if they need to align with requirements like CMMC that we're going to discuss today. But first and foremost, really excited and really honored that you decided to join us today to talk about cybersecurity, a topic that most people do not understand. And my mission is to make sure that you don't have to do it alone, because at one point in time, I had a cyber attack and I had to do it alone. I wish somebody was here like Valor Cybersecurity to really put me in a position to be educated, informed, and to really give me the roadmap at that time to start to take small steps. That first step was most important, but small steps towards a more protected business that would have kept us in business a little bit longer. But that is the reason, the painful experience of why Valor Cybersecurity exists. And today I'm glad that it happened, crazy as it is to say. And these type of standards that the government is setting can be a true pain and frustration, but we're really here to help you get out of confusion and frustration and start to put time and resources towards it. And today's session is right along that line of mission. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in here. One of the things that we offer as a part of any live training that we put on is a pre-session questionnaire. If you go ahead and fill out that pre-session questionnaire through this QR code, we're going to give you a free bonus that basically gives you an exercise to go through to actually give you the action plan, that FastTrack action plan to push forward. A lot of people are looking for the easy button. There aren't many easy buttons that are going to get you to where you need to go, but this is a easier button than a lot of people are taking, whether they're going into an enclave or doing something complex from a technology standpoint in order to get into alignment with these requirements. So go ahead and fill that pre-session questionnaire out. One of the reasons that we put together this questionnaire is we really want to understand the pain that you're going through. And once we can understand that, we can start sending you free content. We can give you a lot of the guides that we have and free pre-assessments that we put out into the community to really lower the barrier to get started. I know how hard it is to get started. I put my own company through this process, and I put over 100 companies through our CMMC process since 2019, when Katie Arrington came out and said the Department of Defense is going to put out the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, where it's no longer a self-assessment ecosystem. It is now going to be audited against. U.S. government wants to make sure that our defense industrial base is doing the right things by the government and for national security. So today we're going to be talking about the CMMC FastTrack, really what we see as the proven path to 110 compliance. 110 is that SPRS, Supplier Performance Risk System score, that every company that needs level 2 or has some of the requirements we'll talk about here shortly need to get to at some point in time over the next 12 to 18 months. And we believe we have a proven path to get companies there because we've done it time and time again. And we want to give you the information for free to be able to allow you to take action to both protect our national security, but save your business from losing contracts. We've seen too many people lose contracts, livelihoods, and money as a part of this process. And we want to give all the information that you need to take action. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So today we're going to go through, I consider this a business strategy session. This is not an agenda. This is going to be a straight to the point strategy session on how to fast track your CMMC process. We're going to go through why does CMMC matter? What does it actually really mean at the end of the day? The actual requirements. There is a lot of misconceptions that companies like us have to battle with companies over or help them understand before they can actually start to take action. So we're going to go through the actual requirements as of today and those that will evolve in the coming months so you can adapt your business. The biggest roadblocks we see a lot of roadblocks, whether it's companies coming to us after they've gone through these roadblocks or the ones that they go through when they're working with a company like Valor Cybersecurity. What is your CMMC FastTrack plan, or what should it look like? We're gonna make sure to dive into that as a kind of way to wrap this up, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for a live Q&A. I love to put on live Q&As because I believe as a person that questions are the best answers. When I've been looking for answers, either in my personal or professional life, I have had to figure out what question do I need to ask in order to get to that answer. So I want to answer those questions for you. What comes to mind when you think of CMMC? Maybe it's frustration, confusion, or you feel like you're already 100% there. But I'm sure you still have questions about, what's going on with how the government buys, or how is CMMC going to be affected by everything going on at the federal level. We may not have 100% of the answer, but we can give you our perspective on it, and that's why we're putting together this training today. So before we go forward, one of the questions I love to ask just to see who's in the audience is, what level of cybersecurity are you? It's between 1 and 3. We'd love to hear from you so that we can tailor this session going forward to your understanding of what cybersecurity really is. Everybody's coming from a different angle that is attending this training. Maybe you have no idea what cybersecurity really is, and you don't believe it applies to you. That's perfectly fine. You know the risks and are doing everything possible to protect yourself, your business, your family. That would be a number 2. Feel free to drop that in the chat. I'm an expert in cybersecurity, and it's a part of your daily thought process as you navigate the day. That would be a 3. So let us know which one you feel like you are, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube. Drop it in the comments or in the chat. We love to hear from you and see kind of where you're coming from when it comes to your cybersecurity level of understanding. That'd be extremely helpful to us. Excellent. So we have some 2s, some 3s, and we have a 1. Thanks for that 1. It's important to be honest when it comes to this topic. Some people don't have any understanding of cybersecurity. I think when a lot of people are in the business of cybersecurity, they think everybody gets it. But that's why we put on these trainings each and every week, whether the topic is cybersecurity as a general topic, cybersecurity for executives, cybersecurity for defense contractors, which is really what today's session's on. But whether you're a defense contractor, somebody that serves defense contractors, or you're not a defense contractor, this is all about the need to set a cybersecurity standard in today's business environment. CMMC is just that first standard that's come out. When it comes to the federal government, there are others like FedRAMP and some of the other acronyms that are out there that have been set. But this is really a new effort out of the government to set a standard that they want the entire supply chain to abide by. And if you take anything from this, whether you're a defense contractor, somebody that serves defense contractors, or you just want to learn more about security standards, this is going to be a great session to help you gain that understanding and continue to evolve your knowledge. So what are the actual stakes of CMMC compliance? What does it come down to? What happens if you don't do it? What are some of the common frustrations? So starting off, CMMC is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification. So what does this mean? It means there's a maturity scale between 1 and 3. They have level 1, level 2, level 3. We'll talk about that here shortly. It's a security standard. We all have standards in our lives that they have set for doing business with the U.S. government, specifically the Department of Defense, but we're seeing many other agencies that are going to enforce this going forward. So it's important to understand it, whether you're doing business with the U.S. government, with those partners of the U.S. government, or you're just doing business in any type of sensitive supply chain, banking, anything data heavy. Artificial intelligence is a big one where they're starting to set standards. This is now a mandatory requirement. You probably already have this in your contracts if you're doing business with the U.S. government. Most likely, it's going to be in your contracts. And that requirement as of today, and I've said this multiple times on social media and other live trainings, most likely, if it is in your contracts, you need to self-assess and submit your SPRS score. That is the current requirement. Right now, there is no requirement to actually go out and get a C3PAO audit. That's not for 100% of companies, but that is for a majority of companies, unless you've had your contracting officer or a prime contractor say, we need you to get a C3PAO assessment or audit by this date. Most companies have not had that happen. They do have voluntary programs. So you will see vendors, other contractors out there saying, we are now level 2 CMMC certified. Those companies are doing it proactively and voluntary, but they're not really required necessarily to do it. They're doing it proactively. So you can do it. There are options to actually get those certifications done, but it's not a requirement. So I want to set that from the start. Common frustrations. This is what we hear from a lot of business owners, a lot of defense contractors that we work with. There's too many rules. It's too expensive. Where do I even start is the biggest question we always get on calls, or if we're consulting with an organization or we're helping to prepare them. A lot of our process starts with establishing that baseline of where they stand. They bring us in because they don't really know what's next, or they don't even know where to start. And when you can prioritize where to start and give somebody a way to eat the elephant, proverbially, it's really freeing for them from a mental standpoint. And that's why we exist at Valor. Too many rules. If you're going to do business with any regulated organization or the government, there's always going to be rules of doing business. It's a cost of doing business, in our opinion, and this is no different. It's too expensive. We hear this a lot. It's too expensive. I'd recommend having conversations with companies like us that really find ways for our clients to be more efficient when it comes to how they spend resources. That's money and time on these efforts. We've done it over 100 times, so we know, and other people in our position in the market know how to save money and time when it comes to these types of efforts. And that's why we exist and continue to get better as a company, is this is what we do every day. So when you go to a company like us, you don't have to use us, you can use other providers. They should have a way for you to make it so it's not overly expensive for the actual benefit that you're going to get when it comes to either a competitive advantage or more revenue and greater amounts of contracts that you can win. CMMC is based off of the NIST. NIST is a organization that puts out security standards for a variety of organizations and supply chains. Most people think of the NIST cybersecurity framework as a best practice. NIST 800-171 is specific to non-federal systems. That's what CMMC is based off of. And they have broken down NIST 800-171 into 3 levels. Most companies, I would not, look at most companies and say you need to be level 3. So I want to make sure everybody knows that that's listening in. You either need to be level 1 or 2. I always say, let's get to level 1, and then we'll get you to level 2, even if you have level 2 requirements. It's a progressive model. And if you can show that you're doing the right things, level 1, level 2, and have that progressive plan of action and milestones, you will get great credit for that. So I want everybody to acknowledge that and come to that realization versus I need to get to level 2 yesterday. That's what a lot of people come to us as. And we make sure to kind of slow down that mental process to actually achieve what you need to do as a business. So what are the changes and requirements? We are all probably familiar on this call, if you're a defense contractor, with DFARS 7012. That's been out since 2017, came out and said, we want every organization to safeguard government information, implementing NIST 800-171. And there was no assessment process. There was really no reporting process unless an incident came up. And when I first started in this business back in late 2016, early 2017, I was investigating incidents after the incident happened, and we were going in and helping to implement NIST 800-171, because if they had it in place, that incident probably would not have happened. So now we have DFARS 7019. That came out in 2019, coincidentally, and was around the notice. It was called the interim rule. It was basically the notice that these DoD assessments are coming in the future. And we've now had 6 years from 7019 to when 7020 came out. I believe 7020 came out in last year in 2024, which basically says these assessments are going to start. You need a system security plan, a plan of action and milestones. You need to have already submitted your SPRS score and be ready for DoD assessments. We've seen many companies, many of our clients have already had DIBCAT assessments, and they've already had DCMA and some of the other agencies come in and do assessments because they were on the higher sensitivity, higher severity of information as a part of their contracts. So these are what you should look for in your contracts. You probably have 7012. Most of our clients have 7019 and 7020 already in there. So I definitely recommend, if you're a defense contractor, look at these DFARs in the clauses, whether it's a part of the RFI, RFP, or you've seen it in the actual contract that you are currently servicing. It's extremely important to understand these so you know exactly what your requirements are. Most companies that come to us, they are hearing from the ecosystem, or they're hearing from a contracting officer that they need to be CMMC level 2, but they do not go back to their contracts to verify that that's actually what they need. It's just potentially a canned response from the contracting officer. And just a little bit of inside baseball as a baseball player is, once they come back to you, if it's a contracting officer or a prime contractor, and they say you need these requirements, the next question would be, is this something that we can put in our general administrative or in our cost plus contracts, or that can be baked into our rate card? I think that is a question we always recommend people asking. Even if somebody says no, if you don't ask, you'll never know. But that's a little bit of inside baseball and a gift if you decide to join us today as a defense contractor. So biggest roadblocks, I always like to look for the biggest mistakes that companies make to help you, who's taken some time to join us today and supporting this journey that we're on to educate folks when it comes to cybersecurity standards, on not necessarily always what you should do, but in order to understand what we should do, a lot of times we need to understand what we shouldn't do. And these are some things that we believe are the biggest roadblocks that you should avoid first and foremost, and then we'll get to what you should actually do next, no matter where you're at in your readiness process. These are the biggest roadblocks to get to 110. So that's the full compliance with level 2. Confusion over requirements. A lot of companies overcomplicate the requirements, and it starts to become too many moving parts. And the solution is really simplify the process. You can do that internally with an expert, or you can just find a way to chunk up the action items into really clear work streams. I believe that is extremely possible because we've done it over 100 times, but most companies come to us after they've spent months, maybe even years, trying to understand these requirements and implement them. But it becomes, you're looking at 310 objectives, you're looking at 110 requirements, and it honestly becomes confusing and frustrating. I know how it is as an executive when I don't understand something, whether it's from the HR side or the financial side. And cybersecurity is no different. It's one of those things that you have to take time to understand and really simplify the process at the end of the day. So that's really roadblock 1. Roadblock 2 is lack of internal buy-in. One of the biggest things I did early on in my career is I would get hired by an IT or cybersecurity professional to be an outside perspective, an outside voice to help them get buy-in. And buy-in can be broken down a couple of different ways. You have to understand what the motives of the person that you're trying to get buy-in from. What are they trying to accomplish, from a business objective standpoint? Most of the time, leaders do not like compliance. I've dealt with that many times, but you have to show the business impact. We've seen companies lose millions of dollars on a contract because they can't renew it because they haven't done these requirements like they knew they should have done, and they've been signing the dotted line saying we're 110 compliant, we're good to go, and then they ask you, show me your system security plan, and they have nothing to show for it. That is true business impact. So when we can show that to a leader that this has happened, we've seen it happen 10 times in the past 12 months. And those clients typically come to us and they're extremely flustered. Their company may have had to lay off certain people because they're losing contracts. Most of these companies are small to medium businesses. They're not big integrators. They're companies that if they lose $1 million contract, that's multiple people that they employ or on their team, losing their jobs. That's really their livelihood. So we try to approach it not from a just pure compliance standpoint, but how does this requirement, when it comes to compliance, actually impact the business in the short, medium, and long term? So getting that internal buy-in is extremely important. Whether you're the leader trying to get buy-in from the other people on your team, or you're on the team trying to get your leader to make a decision on this stuff, There are strategies here, but the most important strategy is show the business impact and continue to communicate it in different ways that really is going to resonate with that leader. And we're happy to help you do that if you reach out. Poor SPRS score management. This is going to be one of the biggest landmines in this ecosystem. Is up to this point since 2019, since you saw that clause 7019, people have been submitting SPRS scores without actually doing the assessment to get the score. So they basically guess. We feel like we're close, so we're going to give it 100, or we feel like we're good to go, which is a lot of people, and they put a 110 in. And what happens is once that contract comes up for renewal, or it is a new year and a new SPRS score needs to be entered, is they go ahead and submit a lower score because now they've maybe done the assessment, or documentation is requested by the contract officer or the prime. Send us your system security plan. And they're like, what system security plan? We don't have one yet. So they start to get into this hurricane of potential fines, obviously potential security vulnerabilities, which is another point on national security. But when it comes to the company's competitive nature, they now lied about something because they were guessing. There's no guesstimates when it comes to SPRS score management. This is how the government is going to rate you from your ability to protect information on contracts. So make sure you don't guess. There's a simple way to calculate this score. There is a little bit of math behind it, but there are plenty of tools out there, plenty of automated tools to go through to guess to put a actual real number to your SPRS score. I think that's extremely important. So don't guess. Take the time and do it the right way, and it's really going to benefit you going forward. So before we take the next step to the action plan, I want to see if there are any key points, any questions, any key takeaways up to this point that anybody has taken away. I love to make these interactive to see really what people are going through. We got a couple questions in the chat here. Excellent. Yeah, we'll have the team keep monitoring the chat as questions come up, and we'll answer them in the live Q&A here shortly. But this is where it all comes down. Now that you know really what not to do, we're going to pave the path for what you should actually do. We're going to keep this really straight to the point. I believe once we want to get to a goal, if we really understand the actions to get there, it's very easy to get there, but we oftentimes get confused along the journey and need a little bit of nudge or guidance to keep us on track. So one of the key questions we always get is, where do I even start? I mentioned that earlier. You have to know your starting point. Where do you start? Where are you starting from? Have you calculated your SPRS score up to this point? If it's no, that's going to be your first thing to do. Have you done the self-assessment to actually get that SPRS score? These are the biggest mistake is companies go submit a SPRS score without actually doing the self-assessment. And that is what a SPRS score is. It's an output of a self-assessment. And when companies just have an IT person say we're good to go, or an IT managed service provider say we've got you covered, we'll deal with the repercussions later, because that is the easy answer. This gets companies in extreme trouble. We've seen people get false claims acts, and there's plenty of lawyers that are graduating from law school right now and just have gotten the bar that are really looking forward to going after companies that have done false claims. And this is a growing business when it comes to CMMC. They're putting a light on all these companies to just wait for them to have a breach so they can go in and investigate, or somebody whistleblow on this company and say they said they were CMMC, fully compliant, but they really weren't. And, I want to get paid as a former employee for blowing the whistle against this company. And you get into a lot of trouble. It can be detrimental, ultimately to your reputation. So you may not win the contracts that you've been winning. And we don't want to see small to medium-sized companies in the defense and industrial base fall to these mistakes, because we believe that these small to medium-sized companies are really the backbone of our national defense, and we really need them going forward in order to protect our homeland, and it's very important. Close your compliance gap. So after you do the self-assessment, you submit the SPRS score, you're probably going to have some gaps that come into play, and you have to prioritize those high impact ones. So the high impact ones are the ones that are, they could have a 5 SPRS score value or a 3. You have to find a way to prioritize, put a prioritization scheme to actually executing these requirements that are your current gaps. It could be multi-factor authentication. It could be making sure you know who has access to what. It could be threat monitoring and alerting through making sure you understand what's going on your network. These are really high impact security improvements that are going to help you move the needle when it comes to the gaps you identify through that self-assessment. And there are a lot of budget-friendly strategies for small to medium-sized businesses. There's a project called Project Flank through the Navy. There's a couple other resources out there. I know the NSA has some resources out there for small to medium-sized companies to help them along that compliance journey. And we have basically a list of all these resources based off of what you need and where your company's going. You may be able to leverage these budget-friendly strategies that are specific for small to medium-sized companies. And we've helped many of our clients connect to these resources. That's ultimately why we exist as a company, is making sure you save time, money, and ultimately the resources that are valuable to you as you go through this process. If you have to do it anyway, might as well do it the right way the first time, as opposed to having to go back and do it all over again. Documentation and proof. A lot of people say, we're fully compliant, we have all these things in place, but when you look under the hood, it cannot be proven, to the Department of Defense, to a prime contractor, and that's extremely scary. They don't really care about what you say, they only care what you can prove, and that's done through documentation. It's done through the right policies, security plans, training, procedures, making sure you have evidence of everything that you're doing. You could be doing it perfectly, you could be 100% compliant from a technical standpoint, but if those are not documented, you're not going to get to 110. So make sure you have the right documentation. That is a system security plan, plan of action and milestones, written information security policy, an incident response plan, and a resource plan. Those are the 5 documents that every company needs. We go into a lot of companies and they basically just have a system security plan and a plan of action and milestones. And that is a great step. Those are a majority of the requirements. But if you don't have the policies to reinforce what you're saying in that system security plan, or you don't have an incident response plan to guide how you're going to actually respond to an incident, then you just have the technical aspects. You don't have the administrative and governance aspects. So make sure you can prove what you're saying. Make sure you have the documentation to prove it. Maintaining compliance without stress. A lot of our role when we go into companies is actually helping to minimize stress. It's something I pride myself on, is helping executives make sense of this stuff in with the least amount of stress possible. And I think that's something when it comes to cybersecurity. I used to go into companies that have just had a widespread data breach. They had hackers in their environments, and trying to calm these executives down from something that they didn't really understand and they were just being impacted by it. Money was walking out the door, is something I trained myself on early on, something I got from my days in baseball, and how to kind of slow things down and maintain progress with minimal stress. Obviously, there's going to be stress involved here, but how do you do it without extreme stress? You don't have to do just go directly to a see-through PAO or get a DoD review. Do that self-assessment, and that's really going to help you minimize stress. Compliance is not a one-time project, it's ongoing. We see this over and over again. Is we'll go in and prepare a company and they'll spend all kinds of money on it, and then a year later they basically had that point in time system security plan and it's not relevant anymore because the business has changed. You have to have these monthly business reviews, you have to keep this stuff up to date, and you have to have a point person who's actually responsible for it. It doesn't need to be an outside company, it could be somebody internally. But we have many of our companies that benefit from having us as that outside party to hold them accountable, make sure they stay up to date, and ultimately that minimizes stress. Keep things simple. The simple way to stay ahead of these evolving requirements is to subscribe to, fill out our pre-session questionnaire with your biggest questions, the things that are concerning you, maybe keeping you up at night, hopefully not. And we'll give you the simplest way and the simplest translation of what's going on in this ecosystem. So that's your CMMC FastTrack action plan. Whether you're at the end and you already have 110 and you're looking to maintain, you're currently in the documentation process, maybe you're closing some gaps, or you're just trying to figure out where to start. These are really the 4 steps that we want to see everybody take. There's no stopping point. So even if you're at step 4, there's still work to do, and we want to make sure you understand those steps to continue to take action. And that's really our gift for you today, is giving you that step-by-step plan of what you shouldn't do and then what you should do going forward. So we want to hear your questions. We want to make sure we answer your biggest questions. As a part of staying till the end in this training, we're so thankful for you, whether you're watching the replay or you're watching us live. We always give away free resources. We give you all the information you need. And if you get to a point where you reach that point in time where you don't know what to do next, or you don't have the resources to do it, you can give us a call. We'd be happy to support you in the process. If you have not started the process, I recommend scanning the QR code for the pre-assessment. We put out a free pre-assessment that basically is going to tell you exactly where you stand from a CMMC standpoint. This is the lowest barrier to get started. It's going to ask you 10 simple questions. We've consolidated the 310 objectives, the 110 requirements into 10 questions that you, as a leader of a defense contractor, or if you're a partner of defense contractors, or you're somebody that just wants to start a security standard in your business, this pre-assessment is going to be extremely relevant. We're going to send you some free resources as a part of that to help you along the journey to continue to take steps forward and continue to gain momentum in this process. Whether you have the requirement or not, it's great to get started. And if you just want to go ahead and download our CMMC compliance formula ebook, this is something that we updated this year in 2025. And it's basically what we see as the formula for getting compliant from step one all the way till the end. And we basically put it into an ebook, easy to digest, easy to understand, translated for the modern leader. Maybe you're not a cybersecurity expert, maybe you are. It's translated for both of those audiences. So you can take action no matter where you're coming from or where you stand on that, your level of cybersecurity understanding. This is why we put this together. We love putting on trainings that are going to educate you and put you in a position to take action. With that, I'll give it about 4 to 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them. And if not, we'll end the webinar here. So thankful that you decided to join us, and keep doing the good work out there in the defense space. We love serving defense contractors. It's something that's near and dear to our hearts because that's the world that we come from, and would love to support your journey in any way we can, whether it's through our free resources or a conversation on how we can potentially serve you when it comes to your CMMC journey. Excellent. Yep. Thank you. Perfect. Everyone have a great day ahead. We'll see you next week for our next live training. And until then, stay safe and stay secure.